the Game, streaming everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. You are in the zone, the show of the Orlando sports fan. Your host, Brandon Kravitz, here, joined by my co-host and producer. He is Sweet Tea Tyler Caron. Hit us up on the Mills Air text line at 50857. You can also drop a talk back on the iHeartRadio app just by tapping that microphone icon and let your takes fly verbally. And we'll play those later on in the show. Your shot at Orlando City Soccer tickets for their match coming up on May 14th, coming up after tea time, presented by Wonder Fans. Sweet Tea, it's a shame. You know, I think we've officially reached that part of the year. There's just not a lot to talk about today. I don't know what we're going to fill the show up with.
Well,
Mount Rushmores and rankings and such.
We can always fall back to who would win, one gorilla or 100 men. I don't know if you've seen that going around, but it's taking the sports world by storm.
I mean,
we always got that.
Easily on Team Gorilla. Not even close. Not even close.
I can play devil's advocate, but I'm not going to, because you're right. If you think any 100 unarmed men washed by a gorilla, you could do some damage.
First of all, 50 of them are chickening out and running. So now it's 50 on one.
That's where we have no spine as humans to take on a gorilla. 50, I think, is generous. I think all 100 would be running, and that's probably the appropriate thing to do because it's a gorilla, people. Right. Unarmed, no weapons. It is 100 sets of fists on one gorilla. It ain't going to work out too well. And if it does by chance, there might be 8 of those 100 standing.
It's so crazy that you mentioned that. I had a list of about 100 things I wanted to talk about today. I'm not kidding, Tyler. This was thing 100. It was like, if we burn through everything, let's get to that. But obviously, I kid. There is so much to discuss today. I have so many thoughts on this Shedeur Sanders situation. I have been foaming at the mouth to get onto this show. This is one of those days where I love this job way more than every other, where I'm so glad that we have this platform where I can spew elongated versions of what I think, and just to have that platform. This is what it's all about. And every sports fan has the same thing on their minds right now. So we need to throw our hat in the ring, and we're going to do that in a moment. But Magic Celtics, first and foremost, 3-1 series lead now for the C's. 107-98 the final score. Jason Tatum with 16 of his 37 in the fourth quarter, and that was more than the Magic could handle. I thought the Magic played a really good game. This thing was tied up with 4 minutes to go. The problem is, if I can boil it down to its simplest form, is that you can defend your tail off for the whole game or nearly the whole game. But against this team, this Celtics team, eventually, every time you play them, they are going to make some shots, and you have to be able to go stride for stride with them. That has to be within your arsenal, or you're not going to consistently beat the Celtics. The Magic took game 3. You knew you were going to get the best possible effort in game 4, and the Magic went toe-to-toe for, let's call it, 44 of the 48 minutes. The Celtics down the stretch, Tyler, were 2 of 5 from the field in the final 4 minutes of the game. That's not great, but the Magic were 1 of 3. Not that big of a difference, but then when you layer in the free throws, pre-playing the foul game in the last minute, the Celtics went to the line for 8 attempts during that 4-minute stretch, and that's the game. And the percentages moving forward are not pretty. Boston historically now has a 95% chance to win the series. If you're up 3-1, it's pretty much a death knell. I just hope the Magic can go on the road tomorrow and do what I asked coming into the series, which was push the Celtics to 6. Let's get another home game in there. Let's get one more. I do not have illusions of grandeur here. I just want one more game. So that's all I ask, is go steal one, make the Boston fans sweat just one more day, make the next round on them a little tougher. I don't think the Magic are going to win this series. I never really thought they were going to get the dub, but I thought they could push the Celtics, and they got to win the next game in order for that to happen.
You certainly do. There it is, win or go home. It is officially it's you got to go out there and play your best basketball, because that's the only way to come close to beating the Boston Celtics right now. Even with the shorthanded Drew Holiday, that's where you can go back to Friday night in game 3 where I don't think the Magic were perfect, but you did what you had to do, where the Magic were able to control that game 3 at the Kia Center on Friday night. And in the end, it still was good enough for a 2-point victory over this Celtics team. It just kind of shows where these teams are at right now. It shows that the Celtics are the defending champs. Drew Holiday being out of the lineup, you have seen that it is a huge impact on this team. With him missing game 3 and game 4, we'll see how that hamstring is doing for game 5 and if he will return. It's where the teams are. And as far as getting to what we asked for in this series, this is part of the reason why I didn't put a number on it. I didn't say I want the Magic to get to game 5, 6, 7, because what my expectations were heading into this season was not to get clowned by Boston, not to get clowned and to be competitive. I think you have checked both of those boxes. Even game 1, the 17-point victory for the Celtics, the Magic were outmatched. That wasn't a clowning. I think that we could all mark it up that heading into this series, okay, there's going to be a game where the Celtics are going to score 130. They're going to shoot 45% from beyond the arc. They're going to get up 50 of them. They're going to make 24 of them, and it's going to be a clown show. It's going to be dominance from buzzer to buzzer. That hasn't happened because of the fight, the grit, the physicality that the Celtics seem to hate right now. All of those things have made for a competitive couple of games, and that's what I asked for from this Magic team, because it's the Celtics at the end of the day. And people hate it when I say it. That's the reality of it. These two teams are on different playing fields right now. And that's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, they have two players that are right in the thick of their prime in the NBA. It takes a while to get there. And they have 0 holes. And they're doing this the last couple of games without Drew Holiday, which fills another hole that they don't even have. So that's how dangerous they are. I'm with you. I mean, I don't want to go back on what I said, and the series isn't over yet, so there's no reason to even give any finality to this take. There's still a game to be played. Because of the way the Magic have played in this series, there's no guarantee the Celtics win game 5. It's hard for me. Once you get to 5, it's hard to keep track of what game you're on. There's no guarantee that they win that game. They're likely to. They're 12-point favorites, but that doesn't guarantee anything. And if the Magic win that, then I'm right where I needed to be, right where I predicted the Magic would be. If that doesn't happen, I'm not going to, and I know fans are going to hate this too, I'm not going to be as hard on them as I thought I would be because of exactly what you said. There was one game where the Magic got dog walked, and it wasn't even the whole game. It was 2 quarters.
Yeah.
The third and the fourth quarter of game 1 is the only time where I felt like it was varsity versus JV. Otherwise, the Celtics have just been better. They haven't been worlds better. They've just been better. And that isn't, I mean, that was your only take going into the series, is the Celtics are a better basketball team. You wouldn't have a very long life on sports talk radio, but it is accurate.
Yeah. So one thing that we brought up heading back to Orlando, where the sky was falling in Orlando. We've been consistent on, regardless of what happened in this series, it shouldn't necessarily change how aggressive the front office is or your views on this team. We have an 82-game regular season sample size of what this Magic team is, the strengths, the weaknesses. Now, all of that is put on full display to the entire country in the playoffs. Us here in Orlando, we know what the Magic holes are. And so do the front office, the coaching, the players, everyone. It's not a secret to anyone what this team needs. It doesn't change the aggressiveness of what this team does this offseason, in my mind, regardless of how this series went.
Yeah.
What we said after game 2, when the sky was falling in Orlando, is, can we play the game 3 and 4 first? Can we? We're still very much alive. The Magic are alive. Can we play out those games at home before jumping to these extreme conclusions?
Because I was still getting those mentions in the middle of game 3.
Right.
The game the Magic won. I'm like, could you guys watch the basketball game? And as much as I love Mike Giannetti, get off of SpotTrack.com looking at contracts for 5 minutes. Drive me crazy.
The Magic held the Celtics to 11 points in the third quarter of game 3. After the terrible third quarters, and this team will never win a third quarter. 11 points for the Boston Celtics in game 3 in the third quarter. That's the least amount of points the Celtics have scored in a quarter all season long. And that's what your team was able to do. I'm trying to keep when the series was heading back to Orlando. I predicted the Celtics in 5. Like that was my outlook on it heading in. When the series was heading back, I still stood that I felt like this Celtics team should be the favorite to win the championship. What game 3 and 4 has showed me, beyond just the Magic point of view, just the NBA point of view, is I don't know that to be true by the Boston Celtics. I don't know if this team has it in them to run it back. And you know who swayed my mind about it? The Orlando Magic. And so the positives that Orlando showed over the weekend.
Yeah. How could you not watch the Magic go toe-to-toe with this team and not come away thinking the Cavs can defend like the Magic, but they can also shoot like the Celtics? So the Cavs would probably win that series. I can tell you as a sports bettor, if those two end up playing each other, I will be on the Cleveland Cavaliers, guaranteed. And I was of that mindset going into the playoffs, and based on the way the Magic have looked against the Celtics, I will double down on that proposition. Now to Shedeur Sanders, the story of the weekend. I have never seen anything like this. A top 5 talent, talk to your mom about it, going into the 5th round. And that's where he gets selected. Not based on injury, not based on committing a crime, just based on shoulder shrug. I don't know. The shortest distance to travel between point A and point B is a straight line. So let's not overcomplicate this too much. It's pretty obvious that Shedeur Sanders did not go through the interview process or the pre-draft process very well. Point blank. In fact, it must have been absolutely horrendous in order for him to fall the way that he did. And I have seen all the same stories that you guys have about him showing up, not being prepared. He's got too much cologne on. His music is playing in his headphones. I heard one person say he was taking phone calls in the middle of interviews. I mean, it was like if you went into a job interview saying, what could I do to not get this job? That's what it sounded like Shedeur Sanders was doing. I said all throughout the draft process that he was my number 1 quarterback based on my viewing of college football over the last 2 seasons, while at the same time being completely aware of the fact that I am not in these interviews. And if I were, I would put a lot of weight into them. Especially at the quarterback position. It's vital. This is the person you're handing the keys of your franchise to. This is the guy that you expect to be a team leader. If they can't conduct themselves well in an interview, I would be dropping that player down my board as well. And clearly that happened. But what I cannot get past is how far he fell down the board. And what really irks me is that this is the same league that will give 2nd and 3rd chances to domestic abusers and individuals that drive so recklessly on the roads that they almost kill people. And yet Shedeur Sanders drops to the 5th round because he's full of himself and he wears too much cologne. Something doesn't add up to me. I think the league got a little too fraternal with this, and all the guys behind the scenes, they all talk to each other, the GMs, the owners. It is not an accident that it's the Cleveland Browns that wound up drafting this guy. The same team whose owner is Jimmy Haslam, who stepped in when all of the owners, this was reported that the owners collectively had said, hands off on Deshaun Watson. And who steps in, guns a-blazing, and trades for Deshaun Watson and gives him a monster, fully guaranteed deal, which also anti the league. The owners hated that. I think that there is collusion in this. Whether it's a group phone call, which sounds unrealistic, or the breakers where I was at, where they're all meeting with each other pre-draft, you think they're not having these conversations? I don't know how it goes down, but for someone like Shedeur Sanders, as good as he was to fall to the 5th round, there's something more to it than he didn't interview well. You think he's the only guy that shows up unprepared? This isn't you could sell me on 2nd round, even 3rd round because of that. He went in the 5th round because of interviews. I don't buy it. So it smells fishy to me.
Yeah, I think everything that we need to know about Shedeur Sanders is right there in front of you. That he is not at least what most people will think and what we have seen is that he is not the quarterback that is worthy of one of the top picks in the draft, of where he was projected to go for a long time. That talent-wise, he's not there. So when you're already not that grade A quarterback, and then you factor in the other things, okay, his play on the field, that's one class on the report card. Let's go to another class. Let's go with the family. How's the family? Well, it's going to bring a lot of attention. We don't like that too much, okay? Because the attention for the good, for the better, and for the worse, you're going to have to experience both. The one thing that you know, it is going to be loud one way or another. Okay, we're going to notch it down just a little bit. How does he carry himself? Okay, he's very confident, very into himself. That's where the interviews come in. Okay, he interviewed terribly from everything that we've seen. That's an F. You see what we're doing? We went from a guy that was a B on talent, maybe B+ to an A in his first-round pick. And as you factor in all those other things, he just starts to go down, down, and down to where he is a DC quarterback. And I don't believe that he's the sixth best quarterback in this draft. I'm not saying that we're crazy about this. I just think everything that we need to know that this isn't a mystery. I don't know if it's collusion. It's just everyone knows the details about Shedeur Sanders. And teams weren't willing to take that risk to go and get a subpar quarterback. They have to pay a bunch of money and probably start day one in the first or second round when you have all the baggage that he's going to carry.
And I think when I say collusion, I don't know. It seems unrealistic that they would get on the phone with each other and go, hey, guys, wouldn't it be hilarious if we said no to drafting Shedeur Sanders? But I think from what it sounds like, Sanders and his camp put a big middle finger to the process of the draft. And the NFL doesn't like that. So the NFL as a collective, and I mean, I guess credit to them for their togetherness, but I think it's more of like, it's just like a general conscience of owners. They like their process the way it is. The league likes their process the way that it is. And Sanders and his camp have said, screw your process. And they said, well, we'll screw you back. How about that? And it's not like, and this is to the Deion point. You know, obviously Deion hasn't given him great advice as far as this stuff goes. So that hasn't helped. But I think when you also look at the coaching angle, a lot of times when guys get drafted, it's not just because the GM loved them or the scouts had high grades. It's because the coach says, I want that guy. And what coach is going to go run to their general manager and say, could you please draft him so that there's a target immediately on my back, which I believe is a case that you made several times leading up to the draft. And I thought, oh, well, that seems ridiculous until he goes in the 5th round. Not so ridiculous anymore. And Kevin Stefanski, did you see his face when they drafted Shedeur Sanders? This guy was clapping like he just sat through an 8-hour recital for a 6th grader. Like he was over it. He wanted no part of it. Andrew Berry, the GM, looked the same way. That's how I'm so convinced this was Jimmy Haslam. Jimmy Haslam, the owner, called those guys and was like, all right, it's the 5th round. Make it happen. You know that's the way this went down because he was about to go undrafted until who else but the Browns owner stepped in and said, bring on the noise.
A couple of things. I'll start with the coaching and the Deion angle of it all. I don't think that you should hold something against a kid that is being drafted because he's had one coach since he was 5 years old, since Pee Wee football. Shedeur, to our knowledge, has not played for a single other head coach other than his dad. Am I not going to draft the kid because of that? No, absolutely not. Because that shouldn't be important in the player, the individual should reflect that isn't important. Everything that we've seen from these interview processes, everything that we've heard is that Shedeur, you're supposed to head into this wanting to be a part of something that is bigger than yourself. And from what we know about the interviews, Shedeur Sanders is bigger than any of it in his own mind. And that's a process. Teams hate these type of distractions that you feel that you are going to get with Shedeur Sanders. So, yeah, the second that if Shedeur Sanders is your starting quarterback, and it doesn't go well for a couple of seasons, you know that there's going to be a lot of noise as the GM, as an owner, of where your next coach can come from. And it's never going to stop. And that's the handcuff that you do agree, that you do sign up for if you take Shedeur Sanders, especially with a high pick in the NFL draft.
My thing that I keep going back to this weekend, and this is one of the most fascinating football stories I've ever been witness to, because of all the unknown. So I am what I'm doing for myself to say, well, am I on the right side of this? And I don't even know that. I don't know that the answer to that is yes, but these are the questions I'm asking myself. Let me take a step back from the social media noise, from the rumors and all of that has come out, because not a single coach has put their name on this yet, and they don't have to. Maybe this stuff is true about him taking phone calls in the middle of interviews and not being prepared. That all could very well be true. Nobody has actually come out and said that. So what do we actually know about Shedeur Sanders? As a player, and I mean more so as a person, but on the field, I watched this guy play. He's obviously very confident. Sometimes that bleeds over to cocky. He's also tough as nails. I mean, the guy got sacked like 1,000 times at Colorado. So there's good and there's bad with that. His dad is Dion, so of course he's going to have a little flash and pizzazz to his game. But it's not something I look at and say that he's undraftable because of that. Okay, so let's go to the interviews. Well, I'm not in the individual interviews, so I went and watched his full press conference, all 13 minutes of it, of his pre-draft press conference. There's that one line that went viral where he said, I'm going to come in and I'm going to change your franchise, just like I changed Colorado, just like I changed Jackson State. That definitely leaned more towards cocky. That was 30 seconds of a 13-minute interaction where I thought he was so composed, so mature, and gave so many polished answers that you would want from a franchise quarterback. So I was like, okay, well, that doesn't seem very unlikable or distracting to me. Now keep in mind this, and I think this weight's heavier than anything else. He gets drafted in the 5th round. The perception of him is that he is so egotistical, so egomaniacal. This guy thinks he should be the number 1 overall pick, and he's going to be the mayor of a franchise, the mayor of a city. He goes in the 5th round. And what did he do? He celebrated. He celebrated like it meant something to him. He immediately came out and said, thank you to the Cleveland Browns for giving me a chance. Does this sound like somebody that's unlikable and unreasonably arrogant? Or does that sound like someone who's humble, that appreciates the opportunity? So I'm just going off of what I know, what I have seen. Doesn't seem like there's a divide between the perception of Shedeur Sanders and what I am seeing with my own eyes. That is what's so confusing about this. He did not act like somebody who's as entitled as we are being told he is.
It's fair. It's fair. And I won't say that you're not right in that point. From what we have seen, to everything that we have seen within the last couple of weeks and through this draft process, you're right. It doesn't feed into perhaps the narratives that are being said about him. But this stuff just doesn't come out of thin air. The stuff from within the walls that we cannot see. This stuff it doesn't come from anywhere. So that's where I don't know. Maybe it's a balance of the two. Can I bring up one last point before we go on here? Because we're going to talk about how we focus so much on negatives and things in sports media, not the positives. Can we talk about the Cleveland Browns potentially pulling off the swindle of the generation?
Like if he's as good as I think he is.
Yes, if Shedeur Sanders, because you still stand by, and I think that you should stand by this, even if I don't agree, you should stand by it until Shedeur Sanders is out of the league, that Shedeur is the best quarterback of this draft. And one thing that I will say, there is no way that he is the 6th best quarterback, which is where he was drafted.
I mean, he got drafted behind Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel was a 3rd-round pick. Who the hell had that?
That's where the Cleveland Browns, it's a whole supply and demand thing. If there was all this collusion between the owners, okay, no one's touching this guy. Okay, the Browns say, you know what? I'll play that game. We need a quarterback. We said we're drafting a quarterback. We're going to go and get Dylan Gabriel. We're playing the game. We passed up numerous times on Shedeur Sanders. We still ended up with our quarterback. Then in the 5th round, there's some of this that the Browns knew the entire time that they didn't need to get Shedeur until the very end of the draft. You just save millions of dollars. Now it's still rookie scale contract, but you are talking millions of dollars by not taking this guy in the 1st or 2nd round. Like $25 to $35 million, depending on where you would have had Shedeur Sanders going in the draft. You just saved all that money for what could turn out to be what Mel Kiper has as the best quarterback in the draft.
Which is crazy when you consider who did it, because the Deshaun Watson contract is one of the biggest albatrosses that we've ever seen in the history of the NFL. And if Shedeur Sanders is a true top 5 level quarterback coming in terms of top 5 in the NFL draft, It's an absolute steal. Fascinating stuff. We'll continue to cover it throughout the course of the show. If you are watching on Twitter on our video stream, make sure you flip over to the iHeartRadio app and stream us there. Our first four things coming up right around the corner. What else happened in the NFL draft and the heist that took place in the city of Detroit? All of that. But first, the latest from the Orlando Magic.
With today's Magic Minute, I'm Jake Chapman. Jason Taylor